Welcome back to the Executive Coach podcast. And today is episode part 2 of my conversation with Kavita on energy. So if you didn't manage to listen to last week's, I highly recommend you go and listen to that as the foundation. In that episode, we briefly touched on Ikigai and its relationship to different types of energy. We then categorize the two main types of energy in this context, and then think about 7 levels of energy, and we define those in that episode. Now this episode unpacks that. It really plays with the levels, and I challenge Kavita to, with some very specific scenarios, and hopefully as we do that, if this is something you're interested in, it will help you get a sense of how we can play with these energy types, move up and down and around these energy types, and give you a little bit more of that depth of understanding rather than just hearing the concept at a high level and then being faced with a real complex scenario, not knowing how to put it into practice. So this is that little deeper dive. I think that the examples absolutely bring it to life. So I do hope that you find this part helpful. Let's dive into the second part of the conversation where Kavita starts off by giving us some practical examples.
It seems like energy people kind of are afraid of it almost. It's like, what does this mean? And how can I practically bring this into my life? And I could give you some practical examples of how this would work if that helps.
Yeah,
Or
please.
yeah. So for example, we're all used to goal setting, right? So rather than setting goals that just fix problems, right? That's kind of level 1 and 2. It's like ask yourself the question: is this goal that I want to achieve? Is it aligned with my values and my sense of purpose? Again, it's kind of bringing in the ikigai. It's a goal that I want to achieve. Is this aligned with my ikigai? Let's say, and if it is, doesn't that make that goal more? I don't know, enlightened or more like more energetic. Do you know what I mean? So it's like practically applying these things. What about like,
Oh, I love that.
uh,
Can I
yeah,
just add in there? So I think,
yes,
we do talk about goals here quite a bit, and what is the energy of the goal? Like, is it a lower energy, catabolic energy type of goal born out of more fear and fear of failure, or other things that we don't want, scarcity mindset? Or is
hmm
it born out of more of the higher energies of sort of more inspired action and alignment?
hmm
So even the nature, because a lot of what I talk about here is let's be really selective about which goals we let into our lives if we're going to
yeah,
let them in. So
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. You were going to give another example, I think, as well.
Well, practically, like let's say, you maybe you're like on a day-to-day basis. Let's say you're going into a big presentation, right? You have a big presentation and you're anxious about it, and what practically you can do to like understand what level your energy is just check in, right? And ask yourself, what am I what's my core thought right now? Like what am I feeling right now? Is it fear? Is it am I angry or am I frustrated? And so it's a mindset mental check. And then reverse it to say, what's actually possible here? What's the opportunity in this, like in this presentation or in this meeting or whatever it is that you find challenging? Switch it around to think in a level 5, 6, 7 mindset is like, what's the opportunity versus, what's the problem?
Mm.
Restating things to be more collaborative, more open, and have those level 5, 6, 7 mindset framework of energy. Um, you
Love it.
know, yeah. So,
One of the things that I think is important down there in the catabolic levels is sort of acknowledgement of people's experience and suffering. So I feel like sometimes if that victim piece has not been acknowledged, like the suffering element, the trauma, or the hardship, it can be harder to rise up
mhm,
into some of those higher levels. So I feel like that's quite an important step in the process, like hearing that once and for
100%.
all. Yeah, not
Yeah.
hearing it 1,000 times, but allowing that person to be heard, and then saying, okay, now that that is fully acknowledged, felt, and you're seen, how can we
Yes.
a
Well,
debate.
I mean, I actually that just happened last week with one of my clients because I took her through the Energy Leadership Index, ELI, it's called, assessment, and there was a lot of catabolic energy there in her,
Mm,
and at the end she goes, honestly, I feel really, I know this is a snapshot of my life. I feel really depressed about it. And I said, "That's good." Like, it sounds weird, but I said, "Actually, what we need to start at the base and understand where you are right now and what's causing this depression or like stuckness and all this. And once we know that, then it's how we approach it, like,
mm,
and that's where we can tackle, the coaching, and we can figure out what it is that will bring you up, and there's practical things you can do daily. I'm
mm,
sure you've had guests who've talked about how you can bring out, like, for example, sometimes when I'm approaching, a stressful situation, I will just breathe,
mm,
incorporate daily routines in your life, um, go for walks, meditate, journal, all those things that will bring out the pause. And when you bring out that pause in your life, even if it's for 5 minutes, that brings out the positive energy, the anabolic energy. And when you do that, then you get more creative and you can think of solutions versus just diving in to, the next meeting without taking a pause, or, not scheduling your calendar to include personal time,
yep,
not scheduling date nights
yep.
or playtime with your kids or whatever it may be. Um, so
I,
I'm
I
obviously
haven't.
passionate about this.
No, this is honestly, it's fascinating, and I actually have a sort of slightly personal question from my side. Is that I'm in a time crunch right now. I overscheduled myself. I took on too much, and it's been really just a busy time.
Mhm,
I love what I do. It is intense, a 2-hour coaching session, doing a live masterclass, and I do feel energized as a result. It will sometimes take its toll. So in this
mhm,
instance, it's taken its toll on my throat. Like, my voice is literally it's taken its toll on.
mhm,
Um, I, I'm aware that I can keep going in this state more than I could in other work settings because I'm so um motivated by it, and I enjoy it a lot. It's my ikigai.
mhm.
Um, do you think that when we are in more anabolic states, we having enhanced capacity, and could we be then end up too much in that state to the point where we can still overdo it?
Hmm. Uh, when we in answer to your question, and I completely get what you're saying, when we are in this state, an anabolic state, and you just described, like you said, you're doing this, you love it. Because it really is, it follows your ikigai. You love it, and you could do this for a long time. So when we are in that energized state, you will. I mean, I'm going to ask you, like, don't you feel like you just can do this for so long, and you're almost like you're on a high, right? Um, and this, I mean, it can be sustained for a while, but you also have to recognize that you need to take a break. You need to give yourself a little bit of a pause
Mm,
because your body will automatically respond. Like when you start you have creative thoughts, but when it's going on for so long and you're getting tired, for example, or your voice goes,
mm,
or these are your body's signals telling you, okay, time to take a rest, time to reset, right?
mm,
So it's about listening to these signals in your
mm,
body. Is our bodies are the most intelligent things that tell us what's going on. Like when we are tired, take a nap.
mm.
When we are exhausted, or when it's just about listening to those signals and being really, really super self-aware.
Yeah.
And people and when you push through it, which most people do, when you push through it and ignore those signals, then that's when it leads to you go down the rabbit hole of getting down into that catabolic state. So,
Ooh, interesting. Yeah. No, it's a little bit of a it's a little bit complex question in the sense that it's just really about where I'm finding myself, in this current moment, and I'm curious to understand it from an anabolic and catabolic. And actually, I think what's really helpful here is that I have so much more capacity for my work than I did, when I was not doing this work. So I have so
mhm,
much more capacity. That said, you still need to listen to your cues, which I do. I'll take the power nap. I will do all of the things. But like you say, there's still a level of sustainability, and if we push through that, we can end up far down, and we can
mhm.
end up in those early states.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, actually, so something that you just said. I listened to your previous. You were talking about capacity in your last podcast, I believe. And
Yes,
I
yes. Just
really
now,
think, yeah,
good knowledge.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I really believe that's true. In that when we're doing what we love, that fulfills that sweet spot, like we talked about, we will automatically have more capacity to do that thing because that's what's driving us. That's what creates that energy. If we're Let's just think about it. If you're doing something that you absolutely hate, like you go to your job that you actually hate, are you going to really be energized and have the capacity to do the work? Probably not, right?
Probably not. What I would say that people, I think, find themselves more often though in is, it's not that they hate it.
Mm,
It's not that I have some thoughts about passion, and things like that. But they're in a comfort zone.
yes,
Yes, so
yes,
they're doing things
100%.
that they're good at. In fact,
Mhm,
this is what a client was saying to me today. I'm good at this stuff. Am I reading about it outside? No.
mhm.
Yeah, because yes, I'm good at it. Yes, it's lucrative. So I think you can find yourself in a position of a lot of comfort.
Yes.
And now that may produce some anabolic pieces, but it may over time as well start to bring out more of that catabolic stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that is what most of practically every one of my clients comes in saying, I'm, in this zone of comfort where, like, it could be a long-term career, for example, like I
Mm,
had,
mm,
where it's like I have a stable job, I have a stable income, everything's good, but I'm really something inside me is not happy. But
mm,
it's that, it's in the term, I use is called the gremlin. It's our inner critic that is trying to keep us safe, right? And the reason it doesn't want us to move outside of that because it's the safe zone where you don't grow. Like you will remain where you are, and you might be okay,
mm,
but you're not gonna grow in the ways that
mm,
if you really want to. Not everybody does. Not everybody does have that desire. And it's not, it's okay to feel comfortable, and if you are happy with that, wonderful. But if there's something inside of you that's I always say, if there's something inside of you that needs to be brought out into the world, it's an obligation for you to do so. Because
mm,
otherwise you're gonna just either you're gonna be more and more miserable and start blaming yourself, blaming others, and releasing more catabolic energy, or I don't know what I lost my
yeah.
train of thought there,
No,
but you
no,
know what
no.
I mean.
That, that's awesome. And I want to come in anyway, because actually it's the perfect level three, in the sense that it's your tolerance space, right? You tolerate
Yeah,
it. So
100%.
it's fine, and you're not in the full blown catabolic, the bottom, the depths maybe all the time, but it's not fun being permanently there, is it?
Or just tolerating things, that's not fun, right? No.
Yeah, we wanna be
Yeah.
in those higher levels of energy and consciousness, and those sorts of things. Um,
Yes.
I think just been really useful to play up and down it and understand how this can then show up, and it brings the idea to life. At those higher levels, so perhaps reconciliation, opportunity, synthesis, we always win. I would love any sorts of examples around that, or to give people a bit more color, because what might be happening is we all might have parts of our day or our week when we do spend time in that space.
Mhm.
And so I'm just curious, either what to look out for, or what you've seen, um, when people are in that space, or you personally, because you're very familiar with this stuff, what that
Mhm.
might look like for you. So lots of options there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, honestly, my I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now
Mm.
if I wasn't a lot of the time in this anabolic state, right? Because I love it. And I love seeing the transformation in my clients who also get to that state, right? And then, like you're right, it doesn't happen like it's not constant, but it's even if it happens once a week, where it's like, oh my god, I had this idea. So, as an example, I'll give you one of my clients. She is in uh, currently in a long term job, which I wouldn't say hates, but she kind of is on the bordering of not enjoying it as much. And she came to me because she said, "I'm feeling really stuck, and I really want. I see that you're a coach, and I want to become a coach." So reached out to me because she saw that I went through that transition, and it's about the process of, like, first figuring out, like, okay, what does she want to coach in? What is how does she want her business to look? Who does she want to serve? And it's in those little, action pieces that you see the sparks, and you're working together, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's it," or, "That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start a Facebook group, and this is what it's gonna be called," and then within 5 minutes, we co-create, like, the piece that she's going to bring out into the world, or what she's going to say in her video, or all these are practical things that when you tap into, oh my god, I know this is exactly what I want to do. Those are the times when you have to capture them and say, this is what I'm going to run with it, and just go with your gut.
Yep.
Like, go with it, and don't be afraid that there's a reason that these things happen.
Yep.
I believe that strongly. Like, there's a reason that you get these ideas in the middle of the night, or that um, signals are coming your way, and the people coming your way that you think, well, where did that come from?
Yep.
You
Oh,
know,
yes,
like,
absolutely.
how did I meet that person? And things open up, and you just go with it. So those are examples, like, from a client perspective, of how when you go through these things, it just brings out so many things in your life that if you're open to it, that's the thing, is you have to be open to receiving it as
Y-
well.
Yes.
You know?
And one thing that you've made me realize is that actually this is probably why many of us are coaches and drawn to coaching, and why we see it as sort of some sort of a calling, is because when we are in coaching, we are in that synergy creative state, aren't we? We're like, we win together. We're in that co-creation state. So we're in
Mhm.
those high energies. Which is why I've
Yes.
always said, until perhaps this week when I took on just that little bit too much, it's before half term, but normally I say coaching is the bit of my work that really energizes me, probably because of that reason.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when I see, the light bulb go off in my clients, I can
Mm.
see it physically. You can see that their energy, their face lights up, it's just, oh my god, like, I was able to facilitate that, or encourage that, or to have them be accountable to me for that. So in a way, that causes me to be in this anabolic state, right? So it's a daily thing,
Yeah, but I
and
almost feel that even more than that, we put ourselves into that level of energy as we co-create with our clients, if that's
yes.
the work we're doing. So we almost enter into that state of being because we
Yes,
then
and then
co-create.
and that's where that synergy, that's where the, collaboration, that's where the ideas flow, and if you didn't have that, then, like, that's what people in businesses or in corporations should, when they're in meetings, like, it should be more of that level 6, 7 energies, like, where is the opportunity here? How do we
Mm.
all win? you know, versus blame, or, fear, or, all these other negative emotions. Um,
And it's probably why people don't always love meetings, because they're not in that state. And when it's a great meeting and it's a great collaboration, that's when people really feel those higher levels of energy.
Mhm,
Because I see
mhm,
meetings as such a core part of organizational life. So
mhm,
actually on a daily basis, we often have that opportunity inside organizations to be dialing these things up inside meetings
mhm,
if the
mhm,
others will also join in, right? It's
mhm,
there are
mhm.
other people involved in that. It's about the culture of the space and the people that we work with and people we're interacting with. So
Yeah.
I like how you brought that again back into the work place.
I wanted to just, if I could,
Mm,
you talked a little bit about how, you're on this, high state, and then sometimes you get, I guess, for the lack of a better word, you're tired or burnt out,
yeah.
right? One of the things that, is important also, like, let's say you're in a work environment, you're overworked. Delegation, is something that is really important, like, and that is a lot of level 4 energy, right? It's about
Mm,
service, and so getting support, asking for support, and delegation also prevents, burnout,
mm.
and it, creates a more anabolic environment overall. So I don't know why that came into my head, but as you
No,
were talking about that.
that's really, really helpful actually, because one of the
Mhm.
things I did yesterday was I had a meeting with my online business manager, and I was telling her, I was like, can you tell that I'm literally trying to tick things off before the end of the week and I've got a lot? And she was like, "Oh, why are you doing that bit, Maya? Record the
Yes.
loom and tell us, and we will do that bit for you." And so she's, always trying to take those things off play. And I was like, oh, yes, yes, that's
Yes.
good. So you're totally right that if we want, perhaps if we reached a point where we're at that kind of upper limit in some way,
Mhm.
it can be super positive, but it's still a limit, then that is a great route to explore.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
always possible. It is depends on resources, but if it is possible, it's really valuable. There was something else that you said there. Oh yeah. Okay. I just wanted to ask you, since you talked about meetings. So I say that meetings are a key vehicle of organizational life, create opportunity to make impact, and also to have profile and good visibility. The other thing that I think is core is either deep work or strategic work, or that kind of headspace that might be on your own, or it might be in brainstorm or in meeting as well. But the opportunity to do that kind of thinking, that is
Mhm.
more strategic. Where would you put either that head down work, like focused work, and that more strategic thinking? Where would you put those here in the energy, from an energy perspective? Or do that, is that?
Well, it depends on how the meeting is going, or what, like, the heads down work, is it something that you feel that you have to get through? Are you enjoying it? And is the meeting a productive one, or is it a energizing one, or is it something that you just have to go to
Oh, amazing,
because you have to
amazing.
go
Yeah, you've
to,
answered the
right?
question. Okay, yeah. So actually anything can be anything. It depends on,
Yes.
yes, what it is for us and
Yes.
how it's
Yes,
looking.
yes.
Yeah.
The key thing, is that we all move fluidly through these levels, right? And it's not about, like, eliminating catabolic energy altogether, because it's about the choice, right? Um, you can, when you're aware, firstly aware of what your level of energy you're at, um, you can actually access the higher levels at will if you choose, right? And that's the work, is like, I recognize that I am in a state, like, I had a fight with my husband, let's say, and I'm really angry. And then if I continue along that path without pausing and saying to myself, okay, what kind of energy am I experiencing? I'm like little level one,
Mm,
but and then if you stop and think, okay, how can I change my thoughts to move to more of an understanding, or maybe like level 3 even. Maybe not like level 6, because 'cause I'm still pissed off,
yeah.
but you know what I mean? So it's about choosing. Awareness and choice are the 2 important things.
Okay. And I'm conscious of our time, but I do therefore have a question on that one. I think this is quite important in conflict, relational stuff, around some of the frustration that people have inside organizations or in relationships is where there's a repeated um violation of boundaries is one way to say it, but there's a repeated failing to deliver. So
Mm.
I had a client telling me, I'm too harsh with people. And when we unpacked it, it turned out that it was one person that was just not getting it despite all the work that she put in. So actually, it was fair enough that she was at the end of her tether, right, on this topic. She'd really tried everything, and she was fed up, right? Is there a world in which that state where I had to really say to her, look, that that is a rational human response. Like that is how, you're okay there. Um, that's not you being harsh. The situation was tricky and it brought out a frustration in you. Do you think there's a space then in that to still elevate your energy?
So you're saying is that if there's a situation where you've tried everything, pretty much that
You've tried
you've,
everything or there's repeated
and
failings. Right? So
yes,
the person in the other side of that interaction is not pulling up, right? So you're locked into a pattern there.
yeah,
And so it goes back to another example is, you know, as the research shows that you shouldn't engage in forgiveness if you're in an abusive relationship, right? It's that type of thing. But often that's the problem, is that you have a lovely, forgiving nature of somebody and they will
hmm,
perpetuate, therefore, the abusive relationship, unfortunately. No fault of
hmm,
their own, but,
hmm,
So
yeah,
likewise, there is a reason why we might be in victim conflict energy, because it's not acceptable, it's
hmm,
not fair, it's not, we shouldn't have to put up with something. And therefore, in that specific situation, do we say, you know what, in that situation, that emotion is justified? We acknowledge it, we hear it. Doesn't mean that you have to
hmm,
get completely lost in it and that's enough.
hmm,
Or do
hmm.
we say that? And then also, is there a way to still elevate?
Yeah, I would say both.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I would say that it's there, and sometimes situations become so out of our control that we are in level one energy, and that's as if things are beyond our control, then we shouldn't. It shouldn't be like we have to fight against it because that's reality, right? Um, if it comes to the point where let's say I am dealing with somebody that I've tried to deal with, and things are not improving. I always I always suggest and I always say is that have we tried looking at how that where that person's why is that person acting like this? Where is that person's catabolic energy coming from? Is it something that we expect? Like sometimes we expect somebody to respond like this, and that's without asking or understanding why are they experiencing this or why are they showing up like this.
Yeah.
So asking the
Which
questions,
Yeah, which is fine, but I think unfortunately sometimes inside organizations, it can be just sometimes a lack of competence. So you've got somebody in
yes,
your team that is
for
just,
sure.
they're not going to get it, and yet they are the person that you need to. So we where we have an opportunity to work and coach and develop, brilliant, but sometimes we don't, and sometimes therefore we are in a frustrating situation, or it could be a relationship situation that is frustrating for that reason.
Mhm.
And let's say we can't change the individual, as we've tried, right? Do we have still an opportunity to elevate, or do we just say, actually, this is a space where,
Yeah. So that's something interesting you said, we can't change the individual. You can't change anybody, right? You can only change your own response to them,
yeah,
right? So if that situation is something that's causing you to go down to that level, then you need to switch your own reaction. So I don't know if I'm explaining it properly, but what I'm suggesting is we cannot assume that we're ever going to change an individual. We can only change our reaction to how that individual affects us.
mm, yeah,
You know, um, if you're going in every day and this person is not competent, is not doing their work, despite everything that you've tried, if you're going to react with frustration every single day, then that's who's that hurting? It's only hurting yourself, right? It's rather than that, it's more about maybe it's about going into acceptance or just tolerating. Maybe
Mm,
that's the only way that maybe it's a level 3. Like, okay,
mm,
that person, I have to work with that person.
mm,
So maybe in that extreme example, maybe it is tolerating that's better than anger.
mm,
So it's
mm,
even moving up the scale one level.
mm. Yeah. And I guess that's fine. My worry
You
my
don't
wo-
you don't seem too happy with that answer.
yeah, no, my worry there is that what it means is that she's then taking on the work, right? Because eventually, if somebody's not able to do that job, then it's falling on the other person. So actually, what tolerating means is it means saying this was not acceptable, right? At the conflict energy level, this was very clearly not acceptable. But now I've moved to a place of tolerance, um, and actually, that means that this behavior is now allowed in some way.
No, it's not that. It's not about that behavior of the other person's allowed. It's more that you're accepting it. Like you're not letting it get you into the level 1, 2. You're creating your own reaction. Like you're moving more anabolic, and you're not letting it frustrate you,
Yeah. And then
right?
behaviorally, what do you do? Because I guess then there needs to be a behavioral analog there.
Yeah, I mean, if everything has been tried and that communication has been, you've tried to communicate with that person, you've tried to understand what perspective they're coming from, try to give them the resources to help them move forward or to, understand what's going on. If that doesn't work, then it's about bringing other people in, I think.
Mm.
It's about
Yeah.
bringing other people in and sharing.
Mm.
Because the thing is, you can tolerate, but then that tolerating, maybe other people in the organization are tolerating that person.
Yep.
So then what happens when you're in a meeting? Everybody's tolerating everybody and nobody's really creating anything.
Yep.
So then it's like, where's the source of that? And then
Yep.
you have to identify the source of that. And then action should be taken as to, well, either that person has to be given some sort of coaching
Yeah.
or needs to
Move on.
needs to move on,
Yeah. No,
you know?
I sorry if I sort of drilled into that quite a lot, but actually what I see there is that there is still an opportunity without harming oneself, right? Taking on that for yourself or forgiving and forgetting and, that
Mhm,
enabling a behavior. I guess that's my worry, right? Because anger
mhm,
can have a purpose because it can actually sometimes shed light on a unfair situation, right?
mhm,
That's certain
mhm,
types of anger.
mhm.
So you can you can still move up an energy level without having to take that load on yourself, I guess.
Yes,
Because
yes,
at a certain point the line is drawn and it's more about your personal feelings and reactions. You can still take actions to move the situation forward or extend it to others that need to manage it.
absolutely, and again, it's really, awareness and understanding that you're there, and how can you move up the ladder or move up the scale or spectrum even one level,
Love
you know?
it. Love
Yes.
it. No, that is awesome. Thank you for going into the nitty-gritty on it, because I
You're
think
welcome.
that's what
Yeah.
really brings it to life, and that was what enables people to then think this is something they could think about putting into practice. Tell us where people can find you and what they would be able to do around this with you.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for asking. So the best way to find me, Maya, is on my website. It's mytimenowcoaching.com. I have a one-on-one coaching program. I have an online course as well. And I have a podcast as well called the Midlife Reinvention Podcast,
Yes.
which I think you're gonna be on as well. So I'm
Yes.
excited about that. And around this whole energy piece, I do, as I said, I'm certified to administer and debrief on something called the Energy Leadership Index Assessment. It's an attitudinal assessment, which looks at the levels seven, the level of energies that you have, how you can approach life under stress and in normal circumstances. I also do an Eli 360 for organizations, which does bring into the regular Eli, it adds 36 leadership competencies, which organizations can, you can rate yourself on these competencies, and you have others in your realm to see what they see about these competencies and where the gaps might be. It's very powerful, and it looks at it from an energetic perspective as well. So that's
So
really,
pleased.
really powerful too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm so
Uh-huh.
pleased that that is being brought in a structured way or in a way that can actually be accessed by organizations. So that sounds fascinating. You know where you can find Kavita. It has been awesome to learn about energy from you. It's definitely something I'm really interested in. And I know listeners will be because they've been hearing bits and pieces over the last few months. So I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And just quickly, also, if anybody's interested, I'm happy to offer, free consultation. So just go on my website, or you can email me as well. And the email is kavita at itsmytimenowcoaching.com. I'd be happy to have a discussion with you. And it was just a pleasure. I love this conversation. And thank you so much for the opportunity, Maya. You're doing great things. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and hopefully listeners have had a sense of even a glimpse of the vibe of the consultation because we've had a lovely chat and they've got to experience you. So definitely check all of that stuff out. And yeah, look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.